like uses, how about like information architecture maps, little wireframes, okay, requirements. Is that a more common one? So maybe? Okay. Let me get set up real quick. Okay, cool. Oh, the emojis. Turned into boxes. Man, okay. Let's you see, there they are. Should I just do it like this so you can just see the whole background? All right. It'll work, whatever. All right. So thanks for having me. My name is Nicki Vance. I am a UX consultant, and I moved here recently from Portland, Oregon. So explains the accent. All right. So I want to talk to you about concept design. And what I mean by this is ideas. Concept is a word that we use for all kinds of things. And so by ideas, I'm talking about sort of like those different pieces that help us understand a larger app or program or system that we're working with. So they're often very much this like unseen foundation for whatever we're building, right? We just take them for granted. We just, oh yeah, we know what we're talking about. This is the app. This is what we're building. And this is what we build our systems on and our interfaces that connect the people who use our stuff to our systems. So this is, I'd say, a useful sort of design tool for anyone, not just designers. I think anytime you're making anything that's systems related, it would, I highly recommend it. It would come in handy. So let's talk through an example. This year, I built a personal finance app, so I used concept design for that. So I'm just going to walk you through a few concepts that I'm familiar with. So with a personal finance app, we want to use concepts that already exist in the world, or else we're going to have to teach everyone who's using it something completely new. Like, here, we're going to trade apples. Like, that's not going to fly for a personal finance app because we use the banking system. And the banking system has concepts like an account, a bank account. And they also have concepts like transactions, right? You're probably going to have your app, you'll have a ledger, a list of transactions. People are going to want to maybe download those or send them somewhere. They might want to add new ones. And so that is a really core piece of what you're building around. So it's helpful to look at the details. But let me back up a sec to the product goal, because this is something we always want to keep in mind as we're designing. So for our app, let's imagine that we want to help people save money through better budgeting. Already, that gets us another concept, budgets. So what is a budget, right? What does this mean? So the practice of concept design is to really dig into these concepts and ideas. And so we ask ourselves a series of questions, and it kind of concerns like a fair amount of kind of writing and trying to like make nice, concise definitions of things, because then it's so much easier to communicate with everyone and to sort of define why this concept is different from another concept. So some of the questions we might ask when we're defining our concepts using the budget is, what is it, right? Let's see if we can define that clearly. How does a budget save you money? How is it helping us with our purpose, our goal for our product? Why do we need it, right? If it doesn't have a good reason, we probably don't want to have this concept. It's going to muddle things up. And always in design, it's useful to think about what are some variations to this, right? There might be many ways to think about this concept. And doing that kind of comparative analysis helps us look at, is anyone else doing like a really great job with this? Is everything else not working? And is there a way that we can make this better somehow? So let's take a look at these questions in detail. So what is a budget? Well, it's basically just a number. I want to save like some money, so I might be like, well, I need to curb my Game Boy gaming, and I'm going to say I'm only going to spend $100 on games every month. So $100, that's your budget. That's just a number. But we've already introduced more concepts here. While defining it, I mentioned a time frame, right, this month, and a category, like the games, right? So budget kind of doesn't stand alone. There's mapping that happens here. They rely on other concepts, and you want to build them up into a cohesive system, basically. So how does a budget save you money, right? Well, it's just a number. It's $100, so what does this get us? We actually want to compare it with something else. You want to look at, well, how much have I actually spent in this category compared with my budget to see if I am over or under how I'm doing. So yet again, we have another concept, and it just keeps going. Yeah, so you want to get to the core ones. You probably don't want to keep going forever till you have 100 concepts, but just work with kind of what do you really need to define the product that you're building. So you might have spending as a concept. You might want to work on what do you want to name this? Is it a total? Is it a spending total? Naming becomes quite important, right? Because people connect mental concepts to names. And last, let's look at the variations on a budget concept. So here's where we might start looking elsewhere. I want to show you an example from Simple Bank. Has anyone heard of Simple Bank? Okay, cool. They're based in Portland. The founder is from Melbourne. So good job. Simple uses a concept of goals, right? And on the surface, you might say, well, they just renamed budgets to goals. But it's always a great exercise to think about what might be the differences, how are they using it? And, you know, in looking at this, it occurred to me that maybe goals is a little more expansive than budgets. A budget kind of feels a little limiting, whereas goals are a little more aspirational. And when you look at their interfaces, they include things like, you know, you might be saving up for a vacation. It doesn't really come to mind when you think about budgeting or creating budgets, but it is in a sense, right? So maybe goals is a way to be more inclusive of a budget that is limiting and a budget that is sort of building up to something. I want to also talk about one of their other concepts, the safe to spend concept. This is a variation. They probably were talking about the concept of a bank balance, right? You're probably looking at a personal finance app, you're like, oh yeah, how much money is in my account? This is pretty useful. But when they were kind of looking at their goals as being a bank that helps you be smart about your money, I imagine they were thinking, well, when you look at your bank balance and you're kind of deciding like, oh, can I buy this game today? Is that going to put me over the limit? Or maybe it's something totally out of the scope of your budget. You aren't going to get any useful information from your bank balance because a lot of it's reserved for other things. And so they decided, let's create an additional concept that's related, where we just subtract this for you. We do that mental arithmetic. Well, it's not mental for them, but they, you know, they save you the mental arithmetic of subtracting out your goals and the scheduled payments that you might have for your rent and say, hey, yeah, this is safe to spend. So it becomes a very useful concept that furthers their goal. So I want to wrap this up by saying thank you to Daniel Jackson, who has created, sort of like developed concept design. He's a professor at MIT. And so if you're interested in anything I've been talking about, I highly recommend. He's got some really good papers. One is about Git and how some of the concepts are a little messy. And he's also got a really great talk. So I've put the links to these up on my Twitter. My Twitter is up here, whoop beep, so that they're easy to access. And I just want to say thank you very much for having me.